My name is Michael Kane. I'm 42 years old. I've built 2 companies from scratch. I'm not the emotional type. I don't cry in movies, and I don't dwell on things that go wrong. I fix them. I move forward. That's just how I've always lived. But the day I sat across from my lawyer, holding a stack of legal documents that didn't have my name on them, I didn't feel like a builder. I felt like a ghost. Like someone had slowly erased me from his own life, and I hadn't even noticed until it was too late. The house I paid for, not mine. The car I drove every day, not mine. The business account I created, I was locked out. Even the vacation home we renovated together? Legally hers. All of it, hers. You see, my wife, ex-wife now, didn't scream. She didn't cheat. She didn't threaten. She just planned. Slowly. Quietly. Meticulously. And she removed me from every single thing we'd built together, one document at a time. It wasn't until I saw the final PDF that I realized what had happened. I remember just staring at it. Blank pages with my name missing. That feeling, it was worse than being yelled at. It was erasure. Legal, silent erasure. But here's the part she didn't know. She thought she was done. She thought she deleted me from everything that mattered. But there was one thing she forgot. A single contract. Old, dusty, signed years ago and buried under paperwork. A contract she thought meant nothing. But it meant everything. And that one mistake, that one line with her signature, was enough to burn her empire to the ground. This story isn't about divorce. It's not even about money. It's about betrayal and how sometimes the most dangerous enemy you face is the one who sits beside you every night, smiling while quietly loading the gun. Warm, nostalgic, grounded, but with subtle red flags beginning to surface. I met Lauren when we were both in our late 20s. I was hustling my way through the early days of a tech startup. She was studying real estate and working part-time at a boutique downtown. We bumped into each other at a coffee shop, literally. I spilled a double espresso all over her marketing textbook. She didn't yell. She laughed. That laugh. I swear it could defuse a bomb. 2 weeks later, we had our first official date. 3 months in, she moved into my apartment. A year later, we got married on a windy beach in Oregon. Just us, 10 guests, and a camera that kept blowing over in the wind. It was simple, raw, real. And back then, I would have bet every dollar I had that we'd grow old together. We were partners in everything. I'd work long hours building the startup, coding, pitching, closing small-time investors, and she handled the apartment, the bills, even helped organize my pitch decks. She was good with people. Sharp. I used to joke that if I ever got rich, it would be because of her, not me. When the startup finally got acquired, I made my first real money, and I kept my promise. I bought us a house, nothing flashy, just a 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood outside Seattle. I also gave her half the second business I was starting, an e-commerce firm focused on digital home solutions. I didn't believe in prenups. That's how much I trusted her. We're in this together, I'd tell her. Everything I have is yours. And for a while, it was good. She was proud of me. We'd travel a couple of times a year, Spain, Mexico, a quiet winter cabin in Vermont. We hosted dinner parties, celebrated anniversaries. She framed our wedding photo and hung it in the hallway near the stairs. Every morning, I'd pass it on my way to work and smile. But looking back now, I realized things started shifting about 3 years ago. At first, it was small. she started volunteering to handle more of the finances, which I didn't mind. I was neck deep in operations anyway. She took over our taxes, coordinated with our accountant, managed the house mortgage. I felt lucky, like I had a real teammate. Then she started making jokes, playful at first. Like, if you ever leave me, you'll be broke and living in your old Honda. We'd laugh. I didn't think anything of it, but she said it more than once. And after a while, the joke stopped being funny. I remember one night, I asked her to send me a wire transfer from our joint account because I was on a client trip and forgot my card. She hesitated, said she had to move a few things around first. I found that strange. We weren't short on cash. Then there was the morning she forgot to log out of the bank app on the iPad. I opened it without thinking. The homepage didn't show our joint account. It showed hers, a separate one, with over $94,000 in it. I asked her about it later that night. She smiled, not guilty, not afraid, just casual. "Oh, that's just the one I use for my real estate stuff," she said. "You don't want to be taxed on my commissions, do you?" I nodded, but something in my stomach tightened. Not suspicion. Not yet. Just a feeling. A nudge. Like a tiny breeze before a storm. I told myself I was overthinking. She was smart. Independent. Maybe even a little secretive, but that was just her style. The real shift came 6 months later. We had a small disagreement, not even a fight. Just tension. About the new car I wanted to lease through the business. I figured it'd be a tax write-off. She disagreed. We didn't raise voices. But later that week, I noticed the dealership never called me back. When I followed up, the guy said, "Sorry, sir, your co-owner declined the application." Co-owner? I asked Lauren about it. She brushed it off. Said she just didn't want to take on another liability right now. But here's the thing. I never added her as a co-owner on that account. That's when I went looking. Quietly. Not because I thought she was cheating, but because something felt off. I logged into our main business dashboard that night, the one we'd set up together 4 years ago. My access was restricted. I couldn't edit financial settings anymore. Only view. That had never happened before. When I asked her about it, she said there was a glitch in the admin system. "I'll get it fixed," she promised. But it never got fixed. That week, she changed the Wi-Fi password. Said it was for security. I started getting locked out of bank apps. She began asking me to sign random updates to vendor contracts, short, vague, and always in a rush. "Just trust me," she'd say. And I did. God help me, I still trusted her. Because when you build something with someone, you don't imagine they'd turn it all into a trap. You don't imagine that every sweet good morning, every shared password, every silent dinner, is part of a long con you're not smart enough to see. Not yet, anyway. I didn't ask any more questions after that. I just watched. Quietly. Carefully. I started paying attention to things I'd ignored for years. The way she always knew what to say, how fast she'd shift the subject if I brought up the business, the way her phone was never in sight anymore. She used to leave it on the kitchen counter while she cooked. Now, it was always face down, always on silent. If it vibrated, she'd glance at it quickly and walk into another room. I tested it once, asked her to show me a funny text her sister had sent. She hesitated, then laughed it off. "You don't need to see our weird family jokes," she said. But her thumb hovered over the screen for a second too long. Like she was clearing something. Her laptop, once open on the dining table, was now password locked. I never asked for access, didn't want to seem paranoid. But the distance between us was no longer subtle. It was a wall. She stopped saying, "We." Everything became mine or yours. My car. Your office. My real estate schedule. Your startup stuff. And even though I kept telling myself I was imagining things, the changes weren't in my head. One night, around 2:07 a.m., I woke up and saw her phone light up on the nightstand. The screen briefly showed a message preview. The transfer cleared. All names are off. Clean and sealed. B. She picked it up instantly, turned over, and pretended to be asleep. I lay there for 2 hours, staring at the ceiling. Not moving. Not blinking. Just listening to her breathe. That was the moment I realized something real was happening. Something serious. I wasn't just being shut out emotionally, I was being removed, piece by piece, from the life we built. But I didn't confront her. I didn't scream or accuse. I knew better. You don't walk into a war unarmed. So, I started preparing. Quietly. I checked our shared business bank account. The balance was lower than I remembered. I pulled statements from the past year. There were multiple vendor payments that didn't match any real clients. When I traced the transaction IDs, they led to shell accounts. Ones that were withdrawn a day or two later. I called our accountant, someone we'd both trusted for years, and asked for copies of our corporate filings. He said Lauren had requested everything go through her now. "Didn't she tell you?" he asked. No. No, she didn't. I tried logging into our QuickBooks dashboard. My password didn't work. I clicked, "Forgot password." It said my email wasn't registered. That's when I knew. I wasn't just being locked out. I was being deleted. I checked our home deed, public record. It had recently been transferred. Not sold. Just reassigned. Her name, listed as sole owner. Mine gone. I opened the title report on the car I drove every day. Same thing. Only her name. I checked the operating agreement for our business. The PDF I had on file was outdated. I called the Secretary of State's office to request the latest filing. When it came, my jaw locked. She'd filed an amendment, with forged signatures, removing me as a managing partner. And yet, she acted like nothing had changed. Same smile. Same small talk. She made us dinner that night. Pasta with too much garlic, just the way I liked it. We watched a rerun of some legal drama on TV. She laughed at a scene where a husband loses everything in a divorce. Looked right at me and said, "Men are so careless. They never see it coming." I smiled. But inside, something cracked. That night, I walked into my home office, shut the door, and sat there in silence. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was calculating. Because I finally understood the kind of person I was dealing with. Not a cheater. Not a fighter. A planner. A strategist. Someone who could weaponize patience. But the thing is, I've built companies. I've been burned by investors, betrayed by partners, and backstabbed by competitors. I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars and rebuilt from nothing. I know how to wait. I know how to bleed slowly without making a sound. And this time, I wasn't just a man with something to lose. I was a man who'd been erased. And she had no idea that her biggest mistake was leaving one contract behind. It was a Tuesday. Cold, gray outside. I was working from a co-working space downtown. I'd stopped going into our actual office weeks ago. Something about sitting at that desk, while knowing I technically no longer own the business made me feel small. Around 11:13 a.m., I got an email from one of our long-term clients. Subject line: renewal contract, signature needed. I clicked it without thinking. Just routine. The PDF was attached. And right there, on the final page, in digital ink, was a line for my signature, but above it, my title had been changed. From co-founder and managing partner to consultant, non-voting. I sat back in my chair and stared at the screen. That wasn't just a legal downgrade. That was a knife through the chest. The contract had already been partially signed. By her. She listed herself as the sole owner, full control. Even had the nerve to use our original company letterhead, the one I designed on a napkin 5 years ago. I didn't cry. I didn't smash my laptop. I just sat there, fingers trembling slightly, rereading that line. And then I saw it. In the footer, something she didn't change. The boilerplate legal language still included both of our names. Still referenced a clause from our original partnership agreement. A clause she clearly forgot about. Clause 12.4. In the event of restructuring, all founding members must approve material role changes in writing with notarized consent. Notarized. In writing. She hadn't gotten that from me. She'd forged documents, sure. Filed things behind my back. Removed my access. But she never got my signature on that clause. And right there, in a standard footer that most people would never even read, was her undoing. That was the moment. I downloaded the file. Saved it to 2 drives. Forwarded it to my personal email and printed 3 copies. I walked out of that building with something new in my chest. Not rage. Not fear. Resolve. I went straight to my lawyer, a retired Marine-turned-corporate attorney named Frank. Frank didn't talk much. He looked at the contract, read the clause, and leaned back in his chair. She messed up, he said quietly. Big time. Can we fight this? I asked. He shook his head. We won't fight it, he said. We'll bury her with it. That night, Lauren made roast chicken, poured wine, acted like nothing had happened. She smiled like she hadn't just tried to erase me from existence. And I smiled right back, like I wasn't sitting across from someone who had just signed her own professional death sentence. I watched her toast the glass and laugh at a show neither of us really cared about. I watched her tuck herself into bed and fall asleep like it was just another day. And I sat in the living room, staring at that one page. Clause 12.4. 11 words that would burn her world down. I didn't cry that night. I started planning. This is where the revenge truly begins. Silent evidence collection, lawyer involvement, legal chess moves, and the slow build-up to her collapse. The next morning, I woke up before she did. Made coffee. Sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and started writing. Not thoughts. Not emotions. A list. Step 1. Secure digital proof. Step 2. Establish paper trail. Step 3. Reclaim original operating agreement. Step 4. Confirm notarization status. Step 5. Freeze mutual assets quietly. I wasn't interested in screaming matches. I didn't want closure. I wanted documentation. Chain of custody. Verified timestamps. I wanted receipts, not revenge porn, but cold, undeniable truth. The kind that folds courtrooms into silence. I started by hiring a digital forensics expert, a friend of Frank's. He pulled up access logs from our cloud servers and confirmed what I suspected. Lauren had downloaded, edited, and replaced critical business documents all from her personal IP. Several of the updates had metadata that still included my original author name and her edits. Better yet, a few of the signed documents she filed with the state had digital signatures, but the certificate authority timestamp didn't match the claimed date. That's forgery, plain and simple. Then I tracked down our old notary. We'd used her 4 years ago when the company was incorporated. I asked her, politely, to verify if any recent signatures were filed under my name. She checked her logs. Nothing. "If someone used my stamp without me," she said slowly, "that's a federal crime." I nodded. "Exactly." Frank started building the case: breach of contract, fiduciary misconduct, forgery, and willful deception. He drafted a temporary injunction to freeze the company's operational decisions until the dispute was settled. But I needed more than that. I needed leverage. So I reached out to 3 of our biggest clients and scheduled casual check-ins. I asked simple questions. "How's communication been on our end lately? Has the new ownership structure impacted your experience at all?" One of them laughed. "New ownership? What are you talking about? You're the guy we've always dealt with." I smiled. "Right. Just making sure." That gave me something critical: testimony. Real clients who still considered me the face of the brand. Not her. I collected everything. White heavy checkmark emails showing she removed my access. White heavy checkmark contracts showing title changes. White heavy checkmark public filings with altered signatures. White heavy checkmark internal memos she never sent me. White heavy checkmark call logs between her and a lawyer I'd never met. Then I checked something I hadn't in months: the safe in the guest room closet. It hadn't been touched. Inside were the original partnership papers, signed by both of us, notarized and sealed. Clause 12.4, plain as day. That contract was my sword. And now it was sharpened. While Frank filed the injunction, I visited a CPA to go through our finances. We discovered that Lauren had moved over $220,000 through dummy vendors into her personal account over the last 14 months. Every invoice looked real, but none of the vendors existed. And the best part? She'd used business funds to pay for personal luxury items, handbags, jewelry, a business retreat to Miami, all billed under marketing. In legal terms, embezzlement. I quietly pulled my name from any open credit lines we shared. Froze the joint account under suspicion of fraud. Pulled my credit report and set a security lock on it. She wouldn't see the traps until it was far too late. Meanwhile, she kept smiling. Kept cooking dinner. Kept pretending. But I stopped pretending. I moved files to an encrypted drive and made copies. Gave one to Frank. One to my brother out of state. One went into a safe deposit box. I even contacted a private investigator, not for affairs, but to verify her activity timeline. He found her meeting with a business attorney 3 months ago. The same week she filed the document removing me as a partner. At this point, I didn't need proof she betrayed me. I needed proof she committed a crime. And I had it. All of it. 1 week before the court filing, I sat across from her at dinner. She was scrolling through her phone, glass of wine half full, candles flickering on the table. "You okay?" she asked. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I smiled. Never better. Because by then, I wasn't scared. I wasn't confused. I was ready. She thought I'd roll over. She thought she'd outsmart me. She thought I wouldn't notice the slow erasure of my life. But she forgot something. I built companies from dust. I've negotiated with billionaires. I've survived recessions and investor betrayal. And most importantly, I know how to sit in a room with someone who wants to ruin me and let them believe they've won. That night, I lay in bed beside her and counted the hours. 4 days until filing. 7 until the hearing. 10 until her world would collapse. She didn't know it yet, but the contract she left behind wasn't just a mistake. It was her execution order. The hearing was set for 10 a.m. on a Thursday. It was overcast, that gray, heavy kind of Seattle morning that always makes everything feel more serious. I wore a navy blue suit, no tie. Clean shave. Calm. Frank told me to say very little, and only when spoken to. Let your evidence do the talking, he said. That's what wins. Lauren showed up 5 minutes late. Expensive bag, perfect hair, calm smile. She didn't make eye contact with me. I watched her sit beside her attorney, a new one. Not the one she'd secretly met with months ago. That guy had backed out after we filed the fraud claims. The judge was sharp, mid-50s, no nonsense, former litigator. As soon as he opened the file and started reading, I could feel the temperature shift. Frank stood and began with a simple statement. Your Honor, this isn't just a breach of contract case. This is about willful removal of a co-founder, financial misappropriation, and forgery. Our evidence is clear, time-stamped, and supported by multiple third parties. Her lawyer objected, called it an exaggerated domestic dispute. But the judge held up his hand. We'll let the documents speak first. And then they did. One by one, Frank introduced each exhibit like a quiet wrecking ball. White heavy check marked the original operating agreement, notarized and signed by both of us. White heavy check marked the amended documents, signed without my consent, no notary, altered metadata. White heavy check marked financial statements showing money moved through fake vendors. White heavy check mark emails from Lauren instructing our accountant to block my access. White heavy check mark 3 client statements confirming they were never informed of ownership change. Then came the kicker, the renewal contract from that client email. The one with my title changed, but still referencing the clause she forgot to delete. Clause 12.4, Frank said, holding it up like a loaded weapon. Requires notarized written approval for structural changes. There was none. The defendant knew this, Your Honor. She tried to cover it with digital forgery. The judge leaned in. And the notary? Present. Frank nodded. Ready to testify. She confirmed she never signed or stamped anything since the original agreement. Silence. Her lawyer looked visibly rattled. Lauren's smile had vanished. She kept flipping through her papers like there was something she missed, but there wasn't, because I hadn't missed anything. Then came the financial part. The CPA walked in and explained, in clear, calm terms, how Lauren moved funds out of the business for personal expenses. He even showed screenshots of the dummy vendor profile she created. And then the PI, my investigator, submitted surveillance logs of her meetings with a separate business attorney during the same week she filed the forged amendments. She wasn't just careless. She was calculated. And that made it worse. The judge finally turned to her. Miss Kane, do you have anything you wish to say? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean to. I didn't think it would go this far. Frank stood. That's not a defense. That's a confession. The judge nodded. I agree. Then he looked at me. Mr. Kane, given the evidence, your ownership rights are reinstated in full, effective immediately. Additionally, This court is ordering a full forensic audit of the business and placing a temporary freeze on all accounts controlled by the defendant. He paused. Pending results of that audit, criminal charges may be recommended. Lauren turned pale. And then, it happened. Frank tapped a final USB onto the table. One last item, Your Honor. Audio recording. It was a private conversation Lauren had with a friend on speakerphone. She didn't know my phone was in the room. It was short, just 23 seconds. Lauren on the recording. He doesn't even know he's already out. I cleaned his name off everything months ago. All that's left is the exit script for clients. He'll just fade out. The courtroom went dead silent. The judge leaned back. I've heard enough. It was over in 37 minutes. Lauren lost all business rights. A motion was filed to pursue criminal fraud charges. The court ordered her to repay the misappropriated funds, with penalties. And her assets? Frozen. She stood there stunned, lips parted, like she was trying to speak but couldn't remember how. And I didn't say a word. Because justice doesn't need noise. Just precision. As we walked out, Frank handed me a folder. This is the statement for damages, he said, and the restitution schedule. She'll be paying you back for a long time. I nodded, but I didn't smile. Not because I wasn't satisfied, but because it wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about proving that you can't just erase a person, not without consequences. She took my name off everything, but she forgot the one thing she couldn't erase. The contract. This final part will bring the emotional closure, reflection, and personal rebuild, plus that powerful one-liner to leave the audience in goosebumps. It's been 13 months since the courtroom fell silent. Lauren and I haven't spoken since. Her legal team tried to reach out a few times. Appeals, delays, renegotiation tactics. I ignored them all. I let the system speak for me. And it did. Loudly. She was convicted on 3 counts of financial fraud. She avoided jail time. First offense, high-end attorneys. But the damage was permanent. Her reputation in the industry? Gone. No one trusts her. The real estate license she worked so hard for? Suspended indefinitely. And every month, like clockwork, I get a payment notification. Restitution. The woman who tried to erase me now signs a check with my name on it. But I don't live off that money. I don't even touch it. I moved it into a separate account, one I'll never use. Because it's not mine anymore. That was the final thing I let go of, the anger. I moved out of Seattle. Found a quiet cabin 3 hours north, tucked between the mountains and the edge of a wide, cold lake. No traffic. No meetings. Just trees, wind, and space. I get up early now. Cook my own meals. Read more than I talk. I've reconnected with friends I'd neglected. Had long, hard conversations with family I once brushed off because I was too busy building. Funny thing is, I've never felt more like myself than I do now. Stripped down, calm, real. I started mentoring young entrepreneurs. Not in a flashy way. No TED Talks. Just quiet guidance. Teaching them not just how to build a business, but how to protect it. How to protect themselves. Because here's the thing no one teaches you in business school. Sometimes, the biggest threats don't come from your competition, but from the person sleeping beside you. And even then, even after betrayal, loss, erasure, it's still possible to stand back up. It's still possible to win without hate in your heart. People ask me if I miss her. I don't. What I miss is the version of her I thought was real. The person I believed had my back. the smile that felt like home. But now I know that wasn't her. That was a story I told myself. And when the truth finally broke through, when all the noise fell away, I was left with something I hadn't seen clearly in years. Me. The real me. Not the builder. Not the provider. Not the co-founder or the husband. Just a man. And for the first time in a long time, that's enough. I still have the original contract. The one with both our signatures. I keep it in a drawer in my new office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that what someone takes from you doesn't define you. What you protect, what you rebuild, does. She took my name off everything. The house, the car, the accounts, the company. Everything. Except one contract. And from that single line on that single page, I rebuilt my entire life. She took everything, except my soul. And from that, I rebuilt, not for her, not for revenge, but for me.